So, let's now turn to the role of botanical gardens and big seed banks and what they do for humanity. Our next speaker is an expert in tree conservation and forest restoration projects.
This is Kirsty, Head of Ecological Restoration and Tree Conservation at Botanical Gardens Conservation International, BGCI. Kirsty has been working on forest restoration projects across Africa, particularly focused on getting a broader mix of native species into restoration and tree planting projects.
Hi, Kirsty. Kirsty, hello. Hi, you're in Nairobi.
Hi.
Great to see you.
Yeah.
Good. Kirsty, first quick question, really. I mean, so people can understand, what is the role of botanical gardens in this 1 trillion tree vision?
Okay, so yeah, I think botanic gardens have a huge role to play in terms of tree planting and forest restoration. And that spans right from planning forest restoration projects. So within our botanic gardens around the world, there are botanists who can go out into the field, identify which species there are in a nearby forest and which species can be planted at a nearby site that needs to be restored, for example. They also have a big role to play in terms of propagating seeds for a supply of material for forest restoration. And they really look to incorporate a big diversity of native species as well as genetic diversity as well. And they have huge horticultural expertise. So when it comes to planting a mix of species as well, that's something that botanic gardens are very good at. And biodiversity is something that we're really, really interested in. So botanic gardens also have a role when it comes to assessing the biodiversity impact of tree planting projects around the world as well.
Okay. Thanks, Kirsty. Stay with us for our panel. I'm just going to introduce 2 other guests. So we've got Åsmund Asdal. He's the Seed Vault Coordinator at the Nordic Genetic Resource Centre. He's a Norwegian horticulturist and ecologist who for the past 25 years has been working with projects on conservation and the use of plant genetic resources on a national and a Nordic level. He's joining us from Grimstad in Norway. Greetings there, Åsmund. And the other guest we have is Dr. Kate Hardwick. She's Conservation Partnership Coordinator at Kew's Millennium Seed Bank at the Royal Botanic Gardens in Kew in Britain. And Kate's job is to basically develop and maintain the Millennium Seed Bank partnerships, projects and networks, particularly in Asia. And yes, she's joining us from the UK. Hello, Kate. So, Åsmund and Kate, the Kew Millennium Seed Bank and the Genetic Vault in Svalbard are really quite special. I think many people know anything about anything have heard of these. Briefly, tell me why they were set up. How do they fit into this story which we've been framing about, ecosystem restoration around the world? How do they fit into the climate change challenge, the UN Decade for Ecosystem Restoration? I've thrown everything but the kitchen sink in there. Who would like to go first, Kate or Åsmund?
Ladies first.
Ladies first, then.
Oh,
okay.
Thank you. Okay, well, research at Kew has estimated that 2 in 5 plant species are threatened with extinction. So this is a massive crisis that I think we're all aware of, but it's not obvious what we should do about it. And as a kind of an emergency safety measure, Kew set up over 20 years ago now, when we first became aware of this problem, we established the Millennium Seed Bank Partnership. And this is a global network of seed banks around the world. We have over 260 partners in at least 97 different countries. And we aim to conserve wild plant species in what is effectively a Noah's Ark for plants, so to make sure that they don't go extinct.
Åsmund, come in there, because I've heard your place described as a Noah's Ark as well. So how many Noah's Arks did Noah have? Do we need many?
Yes, because we work with different plant and genetic resources, we are working with the genetic diversity of crop plants. And this is crucial for agriculture and food production. If you think back to the start of civilization and agriculture, you would know that crop plants, as we cultivate them today, they do not exist in the nature, but the genes exist in the nature. And agricultures and farmers have, through the millennia, developed plants. And recent 200 years, scientists have been breeding new plant varieties. So gene banks, there are a large network of gene banks all over the world, keeping crop diversity, and we suggest gene banks to keep copies of their valuable genetic resources as seeds in this global seed vault, as you can see behind me on the screen.
Okay. Kirsty, we need seeds to grow trees, and we need trees to live, and we can talk about climate change or whatever, but we need trees very much. How is it going? I mean, give us an example of a success, for example, from your work in, say, East Africa. Can we grow these forests back quickly when they've gone? Is it possible?
Okay, yeah, so I really believe it is possible, and to be planting back forests that really do focus on capturing carbon and benefiting biodiversity at the same time. So I'll give an example from Brackenhurst Botanic Garden and Forest, which is actually just up the road from here, so just outside of Nairobi in Kenya. And it's in a site that was previously Afro-montane forest, and the area was cleared because it's also a really good area for growing tea. So basically the whole area was cleared, tea plantations everywhere, and the only tree that you could really see was eucalyptus, which is used for drying the tea. So Brackenhurst Botanic Garden and Forest decided to cut down some eucalyptus and restore it to native forest. And they planted a really wide mix of native species, so more than 700 species of woody plants from the East Africa region. The project started in the year 2000, and 40 hectares have been brought under restoration. So within just over 20 years, that forest is now a closed canopy forest. And a really exciting outcome of that project is that colobus monkeys have moved back into the site and are now living in that forest. So it's just a really good example that really helps to bust that myth that it takes a long time to get results with native species. It's a 20-year-old forest. People don't believe it's a planted forest. So I'd say that's a really big success story from our network and just up the road from here.
Good. So when I was working at UNEP in Nairobi and colobus monkeys were coming through the window into my office as the Director of Communications of UNEP and sitting on my chair and on my computer, I can thank you for that, Kirsty. So that's great, Kirsty. Let's go back to our guests from the Millennium Seed Bank and from Norway, from Svalbard. I mean, Svalbard, I understand that Svalbard and to an extent the Millennium Seed Bank are a little bit like the hard drive on a computer, if I can put it that way. I mean, you have the backup, right? You're backing up genetic resources, whether they be crop-based resources or plants and trees and this sort of thing, so that if there is a problem in the future, they can be brought back. But are you already seeing people asking for any of your seeds or genetic resources to be already brought back into nature, because we have a crisis right now? Anybody want to pick that question up?
Well, I could start this time. Gene banks all over the world, they distribute seeds to farmers, to breeders, to scientists every day. And if gene banks lose their seeds, they can get their deposited copies back from the seed vault. And so far, we luckily experienced just one occasion when a gene bank requested their seeds to be returned. And this was the International Center of Agricultural Research in Dry Areas, ICARDA. They had previously their gene bank and headquarter in Aleppo in Syria, and when the war made this gene bank inaccessible and partly destroyed, they were able to receive their copies deposited in the seed vault and start new gene banks in their units in Lebanon and Morocco. And this is a kind of success story for the seed vault. And how, luckily, we have just one story of this kind so far.
That's fascinating, fascinating. Kate?
Yes, we've got several species in the seed bank that are thought to be extinct in the wild. Examples are Cylindrophyllum hallei, which is a type of cactus from South Africa, Erica turgida, South African heather. And there are also some really nice examples where the seeds have been reintroduced after their populations have been nearly wiped out. One well-known example is Banksia brownii in Australia, where we worked with the partners we bank the seeds and we developed ways to propagate them, and then they've been successfully reintroduced back into the wild.
Right.
And I think one of the key things about wild seed banks is that we're often growing seeds that have never been banked before and have certainly never been grown or propagated before. And so we develop the germination protocols, and then these can be applied to help reintroduce the species.
So thank you very much, guests. It's been lovely to have you on. I hope you saw some early other parts of the show. We're doing a big focus on seeds and trees and land degradation and restoration, and you've been a fantastic contribution to this. We're very grateful, and thank you very much indeed.